Good morning, everyone. This is Daniel Whited from Denver, Colorado, and welcome to the Doctor's Clinic Call, where the world is your waiting room. And what's so exciting about that particular thought is this. You can take world-class, science-proven products and ingredients into people's lives and support them in areas that you could never support them before Sisel. And that's what's exciting. So we're getting into a great topic today, and the topic is about, autoimmune issues and diseases and challenges that people are having. That Dr. Kurt Fisnick is in the house. Doc, welcome to the call, and good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, DW, and thanks for being here every Tuesday.
I'm telling you, thank you. And you are consistently consistent, and that is amazing. We love and appreciate you all the time. Every week we get phone calls of people saying, hey, how do I find out about this or that or the other? A lot of times you can go to the website, and I'll let Doc give that to you, and there's issues there. Someone was having some challenges with pain. Someone's having some challenges with cluster headaches and stuff, and they're able to go there and they're able to listen about pain issues and stuff like that, and you can find things from when the call began all the way up to last week's issues that will help you. Talk about Sisel products that can support you and things you can do on your own to get you through some of the challenges you're going through. Doc, what a topic we have. I mean, when you talked about it, you mentioned on a call earlier that we did that there was, a 7% of America is having challenges with autoimmune issues and diseases and so forth. Those are just the ones that have been diagnosed. So many people go through like chronic fatigue, for example, and they just think they're tired and their joints are achy, and that's part of life, not realizing that it's an autoimmune challenge that we can make a big impact on, a difference in.
You bet. Well, the whole thing is that when you start really looking at autoimmune disorders and you start looking at all the diseases that we have, I mean, even some of the stuff that we call chronic degenerative disease, is it really just purely a chronic degenerative disease? I mean, seriously, your immune system, your body's designed to fix it. We're not like a plasma TV where you crack the screen and oops, well, I better go buy a new TV because I cracked the screen on my TV. Our body's designed to heal itself, and so if it doesn't heal itself, there's something wrong. And a lot of the top scientists are saying now that even just anything, if it doesn't go away, it's probably partially related to an autoimmune disorder.
Well, and that's, there's the truth in that. And what happens is things begin to cascade like a domino effect. I mean, one can roll into another, to another, to another. And, and a lot of stuff, from my research, and you can back this up or debunk it. It's not going to hurt my feelings, and if it is, I won't tell you. But however, they're self-inflicted. So many things is because we're not eating right, not getting the right nutrition, not getting the proper amount of sleep, not listening to the obvious signs, pushing through headaches. When you told us a few weeks ago that what should be normal in a headache is 2 a year max, or 2 a year's normal, not max, but just 2 a year's normal. When things are going on, when achy joints are happening at times, you wake up with achy joints, and as opposed to after having a lot of rest, they've had a chance to rest and rejuvenate. And if they're not getting rejuvenated and getting the support they need from the nutrition in the body, there's challenges there. So people are not listening to some of the signs and some of the self-inflicted things they're doing to perpetuate autoimmune disease. I mean, I got a sad story. I've got a person that I work with, a family member that I'm very close to and love bunches, that got Graves' disease, an autoimmune disease, and it was brought on because of a smoking habit, exactly what the doctor said. And I introduced this person to all the Sisel products and sent him a $675 worth of Sisel products to support him for about a month and a half on what they needed. We got this family member on the phone with one of our science buddies. I think it was Tom Jr. As well. Got him on the phone with Marianne. Got him on the phone with a couple other people that understood our science. And I called back, and they hadn't used the products. Called back, they hadn't used the products. Called back 6 months later, they still hadn't used the product. And now they were drinking horrible coffee every day, smoking cigarettes every day. And here's what my family member told me, Doc. They said this, and it broke my heart. It said, "Well, I'm afraid to take those products. They may have something in there that's gonna cause harm." I said, "Are you kidding me? You're sucking on cigarettes and drinking this nasty, filthy, disgusting coffee all day long. That's a hazard for you, and you're worried about whether Sisel products are gonna whatever." And I said, "Just boom, I'm sending you the cash, and we ship the products to somebody else that could use them." And you know that is. You can't help with that. That's a different kind of disease that someone has. It's almost like they want to be sick as opposed to getting healthy. But a lot of things are self-inflicted. They stopped some of the horrible coffee. They would have stopped some of the cigarettes, moved into a better eating pattern, jumped on products that would support them, and guess what? Their challenges would begin to dissipate, and they would have gotten more strength.
You bet. Well, DW, you know, I mean, staying on track, staying on topic here, I mean, that's exactly it. I've sent people products to, and they don't take them. And I say, you know, give them to somebody else that'll use them, or send them back to me. I said, you know, when you get as serious about your health as I am, then why don't you contact me? Until then, I won't even bring it up. And that's what I tell people. But, you know, let's just talk about a disease that affects a lot of people. I mean, 200,000 people or more in the United States, and a lot of people don't think of it as type 1 diabetes, as an autoimmune disorder. But let's just look at type 1 diabetes, right? I mean, think about it, okay? I mean, I'm looking at information from Mayo Clinic. You know, they're considered to be one of the experts in the field of medicine and things like that. But Mayo Clinic. So here's what they say. They say it's common. It's a condition in which the pancreas produces little or no insulin. It says more than 200,000 cases in the United States per year diagnosed. Treatment can help, but this condition can't be cured. Requires a medical diagnosis. Lab tests and imaging always required. Chronic, can last for years or a lifetime, right? And so, I mean, first they said it can't be cured, but then it says it can last for years or it can be a lifetime. I mean, it's like, really? Do you have to repeat it that way? But they say typically appears in adolescence. So I'm looking at their graph, and you look at it, okay, between the ages of 0 and 2, they've got a little bar graph. Between the ages of 3 and 5, about the same number of kids get diagnosed between 0 and 2 as they do between 3 and 5. And then between 6 to 13, the graph almost doubles. 14 to 18, it goes up again. 19 to 40, it goes up. 41 to 60. And so if it's strictly just a genetic thing like a lot of doctors will have you believe, then why wouldn't it show up on day one, right? Why wouldn't it show up, you know, when you're first born? Why wouldn't you know about it before you're 5, before you're 10? Why does the increased number start after the age of 5? And I'll tell you, what happens is that you get exposed to something, and I'll tell you what it is, but you get exposed to something that triggers your immune system to go haywire. And what happens is that when your immune system goes haywire, it starts looking for things to attack. And when it looks for things to attack, one of the things that it does is it can start to attack you. It starts to attack self, right? And DW, when it attacks the cells in the pancreas, what happens is the cells in the pancreas can no longer produce insulin. And we know what that does. It causes problems with blood sugar and all of that, and it causes problems with even vision and joints and weight and all of that stuff. But do you know what they've related it to? What thing triggers it?
Well, I mean, I would say, you know, you're talking about that triggers the destruction of the pancreas or the lack of it working is, you know, is that what you're asking?
What triggers your immune system to go looking for something to attack, and then it attacks the cells of the pancreas?
That's a great question.
Yeah. You want to hear what it is? Milk.
Yeah, I want to hear because that's a great question.
Milk. Cow's milk.
Are you serious?
Serious.
Dude, I love cow's milk. I mean, cows were my best friends when I was growing up on the farm.
But if you have a genetic disorder,
Yeah.
right? If you have the genetics for it, what happens is that there's a protein in the milk that what the immune system is it doesn't like it, and so what it does, it starts to attack it. But then because of the autoimmunity, because the autoimmunity has been triggered, now what your immune system does, it goes looking for something that looks like the protein in dairy, and what it does is then it finds the cells in the pancreas and it attacks them and it destroys them, and that's what causes type 1 diabetes. Crazy.
Type 1 or type 2 or both?
Type 1, just type 1.
And can that be reversed?
Well, no, because your immune system has already, by the time you get diagnosed, you've already destroyed those cells in the pancreas. That particular cell that produces insulin. You haven't destroyed the pancreas. You just destroyed the cells that produce the insulin.
Okay. Now, can the TSX be a supporter in rebuilding those cells?
I mean, you can support it and you can sort of, do a few things, but really in the case of that, by the time it gets diagnosed, I mean, the answer is no. But I mean, that's one of the things that we have to look at, is that if you have the genetics and you know that you have genetics for type 1 diabetes, right? Then when you have children, when you start having babies, the thing about it is that you don't give them dairy products, right? You avoid dairy products like the plague, especially in those early years when the immune system is forming. You want to avoid that, and it seems like it affects boys more often than it does girls, and we'll get into some of that later on. But it does seem like it affects boys more than it does in girls, and you'll see that. But so these are just things that you
Doc,
can watch for, right? So
you just dropped the hammer on discovery there. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and a good friend of mine, he's type 1 diabetic. He's been type 1 diabetic since, he was about 6 or 7 is when they figured it out, and they were giving him shots. And then when he was 9, they put an insulin pump in him, and he's had to use an insulin pump all his adult life, well, since he was 9, so even when he wasn't an adult. But he and I were having a discussion one night sitting out at the lake, and it was late night, and he gets into these argumentative modes, and stuff like that. And at that time we were kind of arguing about Obamacare, and he was telling me that it's not his fault that he has type 1 diabetes, that it's in his genetics. And I said, well, in reality, yeah, it's not your fault, but I said it is somebody's fault, and why should I have to pay for it if it's somebody's fault? But that's a whole other discussion. But he says, oh yeah, what causes it? And I said, milk. And he said, oh no, he said, it's not that. And I had to prove it to him. But if you go look it up, there's all kinds of proof. Another one that's really common is rheumatoid arthritis, right?
Yeah.
And rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disorder, and that's when people have inflammation in the joints. They have chronic inflammatory disorders that spreads to the joints, the hands, the feet. Again, this is coming from Mayo Clinic. I'm reading off their website, and they're saying the same thing. Treatment can help, but condition can't be cured. They're going through all these different things, but they're talking about how the immune system attacks its own tissues, including the joints, but also it attacks internal organs. So most people think, oh, you're going to have the shiny knuckles. They're going to be all twisted up and things like that. The joint linings are going to be all damaged and all that. And and it can be pretty devastating for people. And again, you look at that one, it really seems like, in early years it's not too bad. Even your teenage years, it's not too bad. But then from 19 on up to about the age of 60, boom, the diagnosis just goes way up in the amount of people that are diagnosed with it. And it destroys the joint cartilage. Well, again, what causes it? Well, it's some kind of a food, could be related to gluten. There's certain types of food that have gluten in them, and wheat products. It's not corn gluten; it's gluten from wheat, and it triggers an autoimmune condition where your immune system goes haywire and it starts to attack the joints. And then let's look at lupus. I mean, here's Here's lupus, and this is again coming from the Mayo website. An inflammatory condition caused by the immune system where it attacks its own joints, and it affects the joints, the skin, the kidney, the blood cells, the brain, the heart, the lungs, causes a rash and different things like that. And they're saying that current treatments focus on improving the quality of life by controlling the flare-up and things like that and getting rid of inflammation. And they go on to say, oh, yeah, lifestyle modification, including diet, right, and anti-inflammatories and steroids. Well, you don't want to be on those types of drugs, and you know, I can get into some of that. Here we have another one. It's called celiac disease. It's an autoimmune disorder caused by eating gluten, a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye, right? And so it's you know, classical gut type problems, things like that. And stay away from gluten. That's what Mayo says, which, you know, that's a smart thing to say. We start looking at multiple sclerosis. DW, did you know that MS is a autoimmune disease?
I did not. I was not aware that that was.
Yeah, so what happens is that it's a disease where your immune system doesn't recognize your own covering on your nerves, and what happens is it starts to attack the covering on the nervous system, and it eats away at the protective covering. Well, let's make this simple so people can get an analogy in their head. Let's make it simple so you can think about it. So what happens is that it's like going into your car and taking a knife and scraping all the insulation off of the wire that runs your engine, and now that wire shorts out against the engine block, and guess what? Your car doesn't run anymore, right?
Correct.
And so MS is when the insulation on your nervous system, the insulation on your wire is gone, and now you start to have vision problems, you start to have pain, fatigue, you have muscle coordination problems, you have all sorts of problems. And again, Mayo Clinic says, oh, you want to take medications that suppress the immune system and gets rid of what the immune system is doing. I mean, think about it. Do you want to suppress your own immune system? Let's look at ankylosing spondylitis. You know, it's not really as common. It doesn't affect as many people, mostly males, and it affects the spine, the joints of the spine and the large joints like the hips and things like that. And again, you know, they're saying, oh, we got to take anti-inflammatories for it. Okay, what's triggering it? Well, something's triggering it, and it's a protein that's coming that's coming from your diet. Let's look at something called temporal arteritis, right? And what that is that's when the arteries in your brain, the temporal arteries, they're inflamed in and around your scalp, and it causes all sorts of headaches, right? And again, what are they saying? Steroid medications, right? And they're saying, oh, the cause is unknown. Oh no, the cause is known, people. The cause is known. The cause is a trigger in your body, a protein that gets through your gut, and what happens is that your immune system goes haywire. Here's another one. Another one. It's called vasculitis. So it's inflammation of the blood vessels in your body. So it's the same thing, except it's not in your head. It's in the rest of your body. What's their Mayo's recommendation? Steroids and anti-inflammatories. Okay. So DW, as you listen to me, number one, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Just give me a straight answer. What was the trigger that I talked about in every single one of those?
Well, now you're stumping the band here, and because the answer is right in front of me. But one of the triggers that you mentioned early on, and I don't know if you repeated on this last one, was, you know, diet, like, you know, all the way from
diet,
from dairy.
But what in your diet?
Well, a certain protein that causes reaction.
Protein. Yeah, you got that right. Protein, and so
wrong
let's
kind
take
of protein.
a look at that. Let's take a look at that, right? What kind of protein? Well, does it really matter, right? It really doesn't matter. Let's just say it's a protein, right? And you get protein from meat. Everybody thinks, oh, I'll stay away from meat. I'll go on a vegan diet. Well, guess what? There's protein in your vegetables and your fruits and all those things too. So you can't go on a vegan diet and avoid this. Okay, so proteins, what are they made up of?
Well,
long chain amino acids. So what you're doing is you're taking and you're breaking down proteins into amino acids. That's the basic building blocks, right?
What kind of amino acid did you say? We know it's amino acid, but you said long?
Well, it would be long chain, yeah, because if you take a look at amino acids, right, you've heard Tom talk about like the different products we have. Like we've got products like transfusion, for example, and he says, oh, there's certain peptides in there. Did you ever ask yourself what's a peptide?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, and what was your answer to yourself?
Don't know.
Don't know. Okay, so that's the difference between me, because when I don't know, guess what I do is I go look it up. But yeah. Okay, so what a peptide is that's when you take amino acids and you combine them, and it can be anywhere from 2 to 49 amino acid long. That's you chain amino acids together anywhere between 2 amino acids together all the way up to 49. After 49. So 50 and beyond, you combine 50 amino acids together and all the way up to 200, 300, 400 amino acids together. What do you get then?
So the amino acids have the peptides in them.
No. Peptides are made out of amino acids. So
okay,
you combine 1 plus 1 equals 2. So you take one amino acid, another amino acid, and 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's a peptide. You take 48 amino acids and you combine one more, and you still only have 49. So that's a peptide. But if you take and you go, now you have a 49 chain, and you add one more, and guess what you get?
Disaster.
You get a protein.
Yeah.
Right.
But a compound, but when you're talking about a peptide, it's 2 or more amino acids linked in a chain, correct, is what you're saying?
Between 2 to 49.
Yeah, 2 to 49, but to have a peptide, it has to be at least 2. So it starts with 2, then it starts grabbing the other. It starts grabbing to make a chain, it starts grabbing the other amino acids. And once it hits 49, then you have a train wreck, is what you're really saying.
No. You have a protein. And a protein would be like the proteins that build your muscles, the proteins that build your eyeballs, the proteins here or there. So all they've done is the scientists have said that anywhere from 49 down to 2, that's called a peptide. And you need peptides. Your body needs peptides to survive. But and they're held together with peptide bonds. And then anywhere from 50 on up, that's called a protein. And it's just the researchers' way of describing the different things. And they cause different reactions in your body, and your body builds things out of proteins. And so that's.
But when they come to peptos, those are being digested, and when they're digested properly, they deliver the proteins to the needed areas, like you said, the eyes, the muscles, or whatever.
No. Here's the deal: is that so? Let's talk about why are we having all these autoimmune disorders, right?
Yep.
And so what happens is that so your body, your enzymes, right? You have these proteases, right? That's an enzyme, right? You hear the word protease, amylase, lipase, different things like that. When you see the ASE at the end of the word, that means it's an enzyme. What does an enzyme do? It breaks things down. So if I go eat a buffalo steak today, I'm going to have certain proteases that are going to break that down. They're going to break it down into the basic building blocks. If my digestive system is working right, it's going to break it down into amino acids, basic amino acids, and then my selective protective system in my gut lining is only going to allow the amino acids in that it needs. It's selecting the ones that it needs. But what happens is like, let's take a look at gluten. What does gluten do? How does gluten trigger things like lupus? How does gluten trigger things like rheumatoid arthritis? How does dairy, the protein in dairy called casein, how does it trigger things like type 1 diabetes? Well, here's how it does it. It's because in your gut, you're supposed to have a mucus layer, and in that mucus layer, there's holes, there's lumen, and it's selective. All of those healthy bacteria that we talked about a couple weeks ago, those trillions of healthy bacteria that line your gut lining and your lungs, and it lines your bladder, and it lines your sinus cavities and all of that. What happens is that they get inflamed, and those holes that allow the amino acids in, what happens is that they open up. So now instead of having a little tiny hole and the healthy bacteria select what gets in, now all of a sudden you got a giant hole. So what we're calling ICPs, incompletely broken down proteins. So your digestive system didn't have a chance to break it down into small enough pieces. It slips through the cracks. It slips into your body through this inflamed condition, right? And now your immune system, it attacks it, right? And that's what your immune system's supposed to do. And so when I read these like Mayo Clinic's website where they say, oh, we're going to put you on a drug that's going to control your immune system. No, that's not what you want to do, because your immune system is doing what it's supposed to do. It's attacking something that wasn't supposed to get through. It's attacking something that busted through the barrier, the protective barrier, right? And we've all heard that 60 to 70% of your immune system is in your gut lining, right? So when you start thinking autoimmune disorder, where do you start looking? Start looking at the gut. Start looking at the digestive system. That's the main culprit. So what we want to do is we want to say, okay, you start asking yourself, how do I close up those holes? What do I do so I can get it so that my immune system starts to work? And that's the important part of this call. So in the next 5 minutes, DW, I'm going to tell you what you can do. What do you think of that?
You know, I think we got to carry this on to next week even, because, you know, eating protein's good, but then yet your immune system attacks, you know, tell me so we can get rid of a little bit of confusion.
Yeah, exactly, right? Protein's good. You get it. It's in your diet. If you eat any fruit, vegetables, or nuts, you're getting proteins, right? So you can't just say, I'm going to quit eating steak. I'm going to become a vegan, right? Well, hang on one second. I got to plug my phone in here. I've been talking too much, and I've already worn out the battery this morning. But okay, so what happens is let's look at this. Okay, so number one, we gotta take and we gotta go, what's the culprit that's causing it? So what I'll try and do with my clients, with my patients, is I'll try and help them identify, is it gluten, is it dairy, is it this, is it that, is it eggs, whatever it happens to be. And in most cases, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to say, let's eliminate the ones that trigger most of the problems, and that's going to be gluten, it's going to be casein. Those are going to be the two main ones. I'm also going to look for the ones that are kind of related to gluten and casein, like I might say eggs in certain people, things like that. But I'm going to do that, and then what I'm going to suggest, you know, is that if we can't figure that it's out, if we don't get rid of the problem with that, we can go one step further. And I've got a lab that I work with, and I can send you a lab test kit. I can send it to you, DW, and you can take and you can do a finger prick test from your home. You can put 5 samples of or 4 samples of your blood on this little like almost like a litmus strip paper, and then you mail this to the lab, and they test you for the 96 most common foods that trigger autoimmune disorders. And then they come back and they say, DW, of the 96, here's what you're allergic to, here's what you're sensitive to, not necessarily allergic, but sensitive. And if you want to go one step further, they'll test almost 200 different foods, and it's a reasonably priced test. I can do 96 foods for somebody for $149. And in the past, until this year, that same test was cost me $300-400 to run that test on people, and so I was able to get a lab to do it for $149. But so if people really want to know, we can do that. But in most cases, we can figure it out just through the process of elimination. So we remove the trigger. The next step is that now what we want to do is we want to take and we want to get rid of the inflammation. So what I'll do for inflammation is I recommend turmeric, right, or curcumin, and we find that in our Brain Vitality. We find that in our Renovator product. That's two products that we're going to have. The curcumin. We've got a really powerful form of it, and that's what separates us from the boys. It separates the men from the boys, or the women from the girls. Is that we've got the powerful form of the curcuminoids, and it's 95% pure. And so that's what's in Brain Vitality. So Brain Vitality is actually going to help you with an autoimmune disorder. And people wonder, why do I recommend that when somebody has like a lupus or something like that? Well, that's why. And that's going to get rid of the inflammation. The other thing that I recommend for inflammation is omegas, the omega-3s, the super omega plus. Omega-3s will get rid of inflammation. But the other thing that the omega-3s does is it stops with what we call the arachidonic cascade. It's when your immune system, it not only goes haywire, but it's like it's sending out an army of white blood cells, and it's sending it out so fast that your body just can't respond. Let's say that you're allergic to a pollen, and all of a sudden you come across, say cottonwood pollen, and you're allergic to it, and all of a sudden your eyes start tearing up, and your nose starts running, and your throat gets all clogged up, and things like that. And it just happens so quickly that you can't get in the house fast enough and get away from that pollen, right? That's because of the arachidonic cascade, and you can slow that down with the omegas, with the super omega plus. You can slow that down. If it's really, really, really bad, we can recommend things like perilla seeds, which is it uses a different kind of an oil. It's not the omegas; it's a different kind of an oil. But the omega-3s typically take care of it. Sometimes you have to take a mega dose. You got to bump it up to 3,000 milligrams or 3 grams. That's and that gets to be 3/4 of a tablespoon, or I think it's like a dose of 6 of our super omegas, and so those things will get rid of the inflammation. But then, what's going wrong? What triggered it? What allowed that to happen in your gut lining is that what protects you in your gut lining? What protects you in the lungs and in the sinuses and all of that is a layer of mucus. And in that mucus, guess what's in there? Healthy bacteria, right? And healthy bacteria, they need to have the food that they need to survive on. But a lot of us, because of our standard American diet, we're eating a lot of processed foods. We're eating meat that has antibiotics in it, so we're killing off the healthy bacteria just by eating that steak that you bought at the grocery store. If it's not organic, grass-fed, green finished, and you know why they give cattle all the antibiotics? Because they're feeding them corn, and corn causes inflammation of the cow, and it'll kill the cow. And so what they do is they give the cow the antibiotics to kill it. Well, guess what? When you eat that burger, you're getting those antibiotics, and that's why burger's probably the worst than a steak. And because at least with a steak, you're going to try and cut the fat off, except for the marbling in there. But that's why I eat wild game. I eat elk, and even the buffalo I get comes from wild. It doesn't come from tame buffalo. And so you rebuild that gut lining with probiotics, and we have Balanced D. It's a super powerful probiotic. But if you're going to continue to eat your standard American diet, where you're eating 150 pounds of sugar a year, guess what feeds on those sugars? Well, the unhealthy bacteria, the ones that make you sick, they love sugar, right? And we've got something in our Balanced D. It's called prebiotics. And a lot of people, when I talk about prebiotics, they go, "Oh, what's that?" Well, prebiotics are something called oligosaccharides, and that's a long word, and a lot of people are going to say, "Well, what are oligosaccharides?" And oligosaccharides, that's kind of a classification of a food substance that fits in between simple sugars and fiber. It's kind of in between, oligosaccharides, and you're going to see things like chicory and inulin and things like that. And you look at our balanced D, we've got that in there. And so you want to feed, you want to give the healthy bacteria food to live on, and that's what the prebiotics are. So when you hear prebiotics, start thinking the word oligosaccharides, right? And a long word, but that's really simple, and I'm trying to keep this so people can remember it and they can think on it. And so now you've rebuilt that gut lining, but at the same time, now what we got to do is we got to go and we got to fix your immune system, and that's where the adaptogenic herbs really come into place. And the adaptogenic herbs, guess where we get them? Well, we get them from our product called Avenger. And Avenger has these adaptogenic herbs that are going to balance out the immune system and make it so it works better. We also have it in our coffee, and we have it in our green tea, and the Sencha green tea with the Ganoderma, and so that's gonna help with that. The chaga, that's going to help with that as well. So again, if you've got somebody that's got an autoimmune disorder, if you've got somebody that has allergies, if you've got somebody that has lupus, what would you recommend? Well, I would recommend Brain Vitality or Renovator. If they've got joint issues, if they've got like rheumatoid arthritis, you might recommend both the Brain Vitality and the Renovator, and they're going to say, well, I don't have a brain problem, and I'll say, well, you do, because you didn't listen to me in the first place, so you do have a brain problem, and so you do need the Brain Vitality, and then you're going to want to take, and you're going to want to get on to Super Omega-3, Super Omega Plus, and you might want to add an extra omega-3 along with it. You might want to add an extra curcuminoid along with it to boost that up, get those levels way up to get rid of the inflammation. Then you're going to want to fix the holes that were knocked into your gut lining, into your mucous membranes, and that's where the balanced D comes in. And I just tell people, I mean, if you ask me, Kurt, is that all you take? No, my answer is no. My answer is that I drink a kombucha tea at least every other day, and I do that because there's all sorts of healthy probiotics in there, and it helps bump that levels up. It helps. It assists my balanced D to make it work good, and it's grown in a cultured fermented beverage. I love it. And yogurt has some probiotics and stuff like that, but it's really not the right kind of probiotic. So when you watch, those girls on TV saying, oh, I take and I eat this yogurt, what they aren't telling you is that really isn't the right kind of probiotic. You got to get the right kind of probiotic to repopulate, reinoculate your gut. And then I'll drink some Bragg's apple cider vinegar, and you've heard me talk about that a lot. I'll drink some Bragg's apple cider vinegar. Not because of the vinegar, right? Not because of the vinegar, but because of the probiotics, right? And I watched some dietitian here on TV the other night, and they do this health talk on our Channel 11 TV here in Fargo. And she was saying, I don't know about this whole deal with vinegar, why it's good. She said whether it's apple cider vinegar or regular vinegar, it's the same thing. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, are you retarded? You need some Brain Vitality. And I ran into her at dinner one night about a week ago. And I told her, I said, do you really know what you're talking about? And I didn't get into a big argument, but that was the question, and I just kind of walked away. And then of course, there's so many things we can do to bump that up, and then we want to balance the immune system, and how you do that is something called adaptogenic herbs, and what that means is that if your immune system is kind of sluggish, it's kind of bad, an adaptogen herb will bump it up. If your immune system is overactive, like in the case of an autoimmune disorder, it's going to pull it back down. It's like putting a leash on my dog. When Chewy and I go for a walk, I put a leash on him because sometimes he wants to drag tail behind me. Sometimes he wants to run way out in front of me. I put a leash on him, and he walks right alongside of me. He walks, I can look down by my foot, and my dog's right there walking alongside me. And that's what an adaptogenic herb does. And we find that in our coffee. We find that in our Sencha green tea. We find that in the Avenger products. So DW, I know I went over that last stuff really quickly in 12 minutes, but there it is.
Buddy, I'll tell you what, that's amazing. I've got like 12 million questions, and a lot of people realize a lot of times on the call, I want to take the role of a new guy and ask questions so that everybody, I'm just thinking about questions and ideas and reactions that a brand new person would have, and I want people to understand that. So let's just hit the basics. We've already gone over time. We might as well do an extended one for real quick. The basics are, you know, it goes back to what's in the gut and what the body is digesting, correct?
Yes, how it digests it. It's not breaking it down completely. So things that aren't broken down are slipping through, and they're getting into your body, and then your immune system is attacking it.
Yeah, and so Miss Helen and I, we get our the meat that we have is grass fed, so we stay from anything that has all the junk in it. And being a farm guy, you know, I understand that. I never,
but it has to be grass-fed,
we hated
finished.
Anything that
it
comes.
Has to be grass-fed, green finished, because grass-fed, the USDA allowed the meat producers to call it grass-fed when they aren't totally grass-fed, and so your beef probably still contains antibiotics.
If it does, then I'm suing the guy because I've got a document that says it doesn't. So okay, I'm just telling you that's how ticked I would be. All right, so if I'm being lied to. However, now let's go back to when we were kids, Doc. This is raised on a farm. This is what we did. Didn't have a lot of these issues. Our families didn't have them. We would have days where we'd butcher, and our cows were not injected with anything, and they were grass-fed, and you said grass-finished. Okay,
green
so
finished.
You added that to it. So I'll double-check everything there. But, man, we would do the same. We would butcher stuff, you know, and all the way from chickens to everything. And you talk about healthy, and, you know, if we went hunting, we hunted because we needed food, and we ate that food. So that's how we operated there. So now back to this. Clear it up for everybody because I got a text message here on the proteins. Proteins good or bad for you?
Proteins are great, but what happens is that your digestive system needs to completely break them down before they're absorbed. If you're absorbing it before it's completely broken down, that's where the problem comes in.
Okay. And so now to go break things down, one of our biggest keys is obviously our Balance D. And then to get things set up to where they actually even absorb better. One thing that I found that's helped me, last year was the worst allergy season that I had. This year, the pollen is a little bit higher than it was last year, but I'm having very little challenges with allergies because we hit a different approach this year based on our doctor's calls. And, I've been working a lot on gut health, all right, just, because of our conversations. The Super Detox sets the body up, too, to clear the pathways and even takes small little layers of buildup on the inside of the colon out, and then you slam it. When I'm done with Super Detox, I double up on the Balance Ds just to get everything back into balance. That's the whole idea right there. Is that smart or not?
Yeah, and the whole thing is that, we can sit here and we can blame it on the antibiotics and meat, but it's not just that. At the Gluten Summit in 2016, they said that 100% of people are sensitive to gluten now. And why is that? Well, the answer is because of this really wonderful company. It's called Monsanto, and they produced a product called Roundup, glyphosate, and it's glyphosate. It takes and it knocks holes. It's like taking a shotgun and blowing a shotgun up in your gut, and it blows holes in your gut, and it allows these incompletely broken down proteins, the ICPs, to get into your system, and that triggers it.
Gotcha. And so, staying away from all that as well. I mean, obviously, just yeah.
And it's hard to stay away from them. I mean, how do you stay away from them? I mean, if you drink a beer, can you guarantee that the barley that made the beer wasn't made with a crop that was sprayed with Monsanto?
Oh no, how would you?
Right? If you drink a bottle of wine, and that, can you guarantee me that the water that went into that bottle of wine didn't come from a river or a stream that had Roundup in it, glyphosate in it?
Yeah.
And did they do the things they needed to do to remove it out of there?
So go ahead, Doc. Never had alcohol. Never have had alcohol. Never drank alcohol. It might have been cooked in something, but never have drank. However, then there's a lot of people out there like that haven't. They're still getting exposed to all this stuff, even though it's not the alcohol as well.
Right. And I mean, you could go out to your fancy restaurant and have a slice of bread, right? And the farmers now, they're spraying Roundup on the wheat crops to kill it so that it produces more protein quickly at the end, right before they harvest it. And guess what? Because they're spraying it on the crop right at the end, it's almost guaranteed that it's going to be in there. And so now, I mean, can you really get a truly organic crop? The answer to me is no. I don't think that we really truly can. I don't think there really truly is anything left on the planet that's organic anymore. And so my answer is going to be the same answer that I've told everybody in the past, is that you want to make your body Chuck Norris strong, and so that the diseases are more afraid of you than you are of it.
Well, I agree. I mean, I could not agree more. And what a fascinating call. It's one that we're going to have to listen to a couple times and take notes and really grab a hold of it. So we're cleaning the gut out with our Balanced D's, with our Super Detox. Ficoidin does a great little cleanse of the liver and the kidney to prepare it to dump things as well. So the Triangle of Life is a game. Then we're supporting it with you're really high, and I am too as well, on these omegas, and the Omega Plus exactly, that has the 3s, the 6s, the 7s, and the 9s in it, and the 5s. For that, so we attack it with that as well. Anything else we need to attack it with and to help with?
Well, like I said, the Balanced D, the either the Brain Vitality or the Renovator to get the turmeric, and then the Balanced D, of course, and then the Avenger to get the adaptogenic part of the herbs that are in the Avenger product. Or you could use you get a smaller amount in the coffee, the black coffee, or in the green Sencha tea. We've got the Ganoderma in there.
Okay, so we're loving, and here's the interesting fact, Doc. I've been craving the green tea during this allergy season, so that kind of makes me go like, huh. And I listen to my body. When you crave something, you either want to walk away from it if it's something bad, sometimes your body will crave the bad carbs. Now it's starting to crave the good carbs because that's what I've been feeding it and stuff. So I'm just excited about this whole conversation today. This is absolutely phenomenal.
Well, yeah, and DW, the thing about it is that, as we move further in science, and as I go to these seminars that I go to, I'm learning more and more and more, and gut health, the health of the digestive system is so, so important. I mean, last week I posted on Facebook that if you've been on a course of antibiotics for longer than 2 weeks, any time during your life, anytime, if you've been on antibiotics for longer than 2 weeks, they say that it's almost guaranteed that it's going to trigger some sort of a cancer effect. And so you're going to get cancer. And I was just talking to somebody the other day, and he said, oh, yeah, he's been on antibiotics now for 60 days in a row. And I said, oh, my gosh. I said, here's what you need to do. I mean, let's fix that thing. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at cancer down the road. And I'm not trying to scare people. What I'm trying to say is that let's be proactive. Let's figure out, okay, if I'm going to be on an antibiotic, and I'm not your doctor, I can't tell you not to go on antibiotics, because sometimes you need them. I mean, sometimes I'll tell my mom and dad, hey, look, you need to be on an antibiotic. Short term, get on it. Take this along with it. Take the Balanced D, drink it down with kombucha, kombucha tea, and take some Bragg's apple cider vinegar. And I'll get into that with my folks, and I've got to explain it to them. I'll try and explain it to my sister, but she won't listen anyhow. She's kind of like your friend that you sent the products to.
It was my sister.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, they think they know more. 6 master's degrees, but no common sense, right? And hopefully she doesn't listen to this recording, because then she'll get me mad at me.
I'm sending it to her. Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many things that you can do, and like you said, the entire Triangle of Life, and you can regenerate with the Eternity product. I mean, you look at my counter in my kitchen. I mean, it's from one end to the other. There's different nutritional products that I have sitting there, and then you open my fridge and you see more there, and people say, "Oh my gosh, do you take all that stuff?" And I said, "Exactly." And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I don't have time to get sick."
That is a great answer. That is a great answer, buddy. Well, but we better call it quits for the call today. I would apologize, everybody went overtime, but I'm telling you, this is a topic Doc, I don't really think we're done with the topic. I don't know how you feel. We'll decide that later, but this is one of my favorite topics because almost everyone I run into has got some kind of autoimmune challenge. It's either pre-autoimmune, like sugar sensitivities, pre-diabetes too, and I want to know more about the pancreas and bringing it back to life. If there's a way to do that, that would be a revolutionary type thing, and I think science is leaning towards that. But I've had discussions with Tom about that as well. So everybody, we love you a bunch. Get this call
DW,
out.
before you hang up, let's do this. Let's just tell everybody, you give your email address to everybody, and what we're going to do is after you got done listening to this 50-minute long call, I know you got questions. Shoot your questions over to DW. He'll give you his email address, and then next week what we'll do is we'll just answer everybody's question. We'll spend half an hour or longer answering everybody's questions based on what we talked about today.
Yeah, no worries. That's danielwhited7@gmail.com. DANIEL WHITED, white with the D on the end of it. The numerical digit 7@gmail.com. Put in the subject Doctor's Clinic, and I'll forward those on to Doc as well, and then we'll jump in there and help. But what a great topic, Doc, and we appreciate your heart and all that you do when it comes to Sisel. And everybody, that's it for the Doctor's Clinic call, where the world is your waiting room.